Tim, I suppose we got to get to the push of the program that's probably not comfortable for you. The hot mic in Detroit, the Nashville situation. You were
Why? What
doing
happened?
a lot of people think you were just doing your job, doing what you were taught, and felt you were a scapegoat. We want your perspective on it. Obviously, you didn't know you were on a hot mic, but were you just doing what you were taught, or the system you were brought into? Is that all you were kind of abiding by, and you happen to be on a hot mic?
No. So first of all, and I appreciate you asking the question and the way you phrased it, but it's not uncomfortable for me anymore. And before I get into the story, when they told me I wasn't working again, well, I'll get into that in a second. So that night, that afternoon, just to give the listeners a little bit of history on it, Pete Rogers is the longtime equipment manager for the Nashville Predators. I was with Pete back in Rochester in the American League days. And as Witter and Biz know, these equipment managers, they get paid decent now, but they don't get paid what refs get paid or what players get paid. And they do a lot of shit for the players and the refs. And so Pete and I had formed this friendship over the years. So that afternoon, I actually went out to the wine store, bought him a nice bottle of Caymus wine. Before the game, I walked down. I give it to Pete in his office, and Todd Richards is there, the assistant coach. And I've known Richie for years, and I got a chew in my mouth and a coffee, and we sit down, the three of us, and we're just shooting the shit about hockey and kids and horseback riding and just nothing to do with the game, just life. And I'm like, Pete, I'm probably not going to see you again. This is one of my last games. I don't think I'm going to see Nashville anymore. And I just wanted to thank you for everything you've done for me in my career. And so I leave the room. Now, think about that. Like, I left the room and I go, I'm going to go out and fuck Nashville tonight. Like, it's stupid. It's asinine. And first of all, any good ref in the league doesn't last as long, not just as me, but as, guys that had long careers. If you're out there to get certain guys, you just don't last. And so we go out and do the game. And there was one penalty at that point against Detroit. And Arvidsson, I thought he kicked the feed out from the Detroit player. And as I'm going to the box, I see the replay, and he didn't kick his feet out. He really, I think he hip checked him. So I was embarrassed by the call, because I had always, we make a lot of shitty calls over our career, but the good ones take a lot of pride in the calls that you do get wrong. And so I go over to the penalty box, and I go to Kelly Sutherland, who, to me, him and Wes McCauley are the two best refs in the NHL right now. And Kelly and I had been friends back when we were, coming up, way before we were coming up in the NHL. And Kelly turned out to be one of the best refs. So I came over, and it was more me and my pride going, yeah, it wasn't much, Sudsy, but I wanted to get a penalty against, because Nashville was really good and Detroit was really bad. And I figured, I think it was 1-0 or 2-0 at the time. I figured Nashville was going to win the game. And I'm thinking, you know what? It was a bad call, but I wanted to get one early against Nashville in case we didn't have an opportunity to get a penalty against them the rest of the game. And I was embarrassed by the call, and my verbiage just came out wrong. And so the game ends, and we go to nobody says anything. The Nashville wins the game, and we sit down in the Nashville locker room, and my phone's vibrating, and I look, and it's Wacom, and I show the phone to Sudsy, and I go, what? He never calls that quick after a game. And so initially I thought, was there a goal scored tonight that Hockey Ops didn't pick up on? Did it cross the line? Did we miss something? And he goes, we got a big problem. And I go, what's that? He goes, you're caught on a microphone saying you wanted to get a fucking penalty against Nashville. And I go, fuck me. He goes, I'll send it to you. So I hang up, and Sudsy and the two linesmen are looking at me, and they go, what's going on? I go, and I swear to God, I'm an open book. I go, I may get fired tonight. And they go, what? They couldn't believe it. And I go, I may get fired tonight. And you got to keep in mind, this is March 23rd. My last game is April 24th in St. Louis. And the Blues had already done tickets up. Tim Peel's final game had 160 people coming. It was a 2:00 start, which was perfect because we were going to get good and shit faced after the game. We still had the party at my golf club. But it was perfect. 2:00 start. And so we go back to the hotel room. I'm on the phone with Steve and I'm on the phone with Wes because Wes is the president of our association. And Wes is like, you're not getting fired. We're going to work on it, blah, blah, blah. So I don't even phone my wife. And because I know she's in bed, she doesn't stay up watching hockey. And so I get up in the morning and they've already told me you're not going on to Dallas, book a flight home. So I book a flight home. I'm at the airport in Nashville. And my flight's at 8:15, phone rings at 7:30, and it's Wacom. And he goes, hey, where are you? I said, I'm at the airport. He goes, I hate to tell you this, but you've worked your last game in the National Hockey League. So I go, so this is, it's not funny.
I got a month left. Like, fuck.
I know. So it's not funny, but just to know, so you guys know where my mindset was. When I got suspended for the game, I said, don't do it. Please, I can work tonight. Please don't take me off the game. I was groveling to them to not do what they did. When Wacom, and you can ask him this, it's the honest to God story. He goes, you've worked your last game in the National Hockey League. I go, okay, thanks. I got to let you go. I got to get on a flight. And that's the only thing I said because I knew the decision was made. I knew it was done. So I get on the flight and I don't know that the league's going to release a statement. So while I'm in the air, my wife is now getting all these text messages from everybody going, I'm so sorry. I feel bad. And she's like, what the fuck are you guys even talking about? She doesn't even know. So I land and of course I call her and she's crying and it's a shit show. So, but it's funny because as I'm driving home from the airport and I was doing really good, like, because I didn't feel at all like I did when I got suspended for doing the tequila shot. When I got suspended for doing the tequila shot, and you guys, I'm sure, have all fucked up in your life, and you get that pit in your stomach that you just can't get rid of for a couple of days, and it just will not leave you. I had that pit in my stomach from the tequila shot, but I didn't have a pit in my stomach because I knew what I said I didn't mean, and I knew much worse has been said on the ice than what I said. But in the world we're living in now and cancel culture and so on, boom, you're done. So I'm driving home and I get this call from a Columbus number and it's David Clarkson. And I don't know if you guys ever played with David. He played in Toronto, Columbus, Jersey, and one other team. And
I saw him in Vegas. He looks like he's 23 years old right now. Fucking guy.
And he hated fucking referees, hated them. And him and I got more fuck you contests on the ice. Like he literally hated refs. So I answer the phone because it was a Columbus number. And I go, hello. And he goes, hey, Tim, it's David Clarkson. And for a split second, I thought he was going to say, it looks fucking good on you. I never liked you. I did. So I go, hey, David, how you doing? He goes, good. I'm retired now. I'm retired, but I'm living in Denver now. And I was skating with some ex-players today. And I just want you to know, we were just talking in the dressing room. We think what the league has done to you is a travesty. And he says, I want to tell you something. He goes, I know I was difficult to referee, but he said they'd always have the names of the officials written in the dressing room before the game. And he goes, whenever I saw your name, I knew the game was going to be reffed fair, and I had one of the best referees for the game that night. And he goes, I just wanted you to know that. And boys, it almost made me cry because it meant so much to me, and I was pretty emotional at that point. But it almost, because it's easy for your friends to call you and say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and blah blah blah, you're great and whatever. But for a guy that I didn't even think ever liked me to reach out to Marty Brodeur to get my number and to call me, it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot as far as how I was thought of in the league. And then the phone calls, from Brian Burke and Lou Lamoriello and Daryl Sutter and Dallas Eakins and on of players and current players and ex-players and coaches and GMs and presidents of clubs that were calling me and going, is this a fucking joke? So it was a rough day, but I didn't feel sorry for myself. And the only time, because social media, as you guys know,
toxic.
It was unbelievable. Like Whit, they talked about.
They wanted you dead.
Yeah, you would have thought that I seriously killed somebody in a DUI. I got charged with domestic abuse, or I used a racial slur. Like some things that you may never recover from. I just said the wrong thing, but it was on Fox, it was on CNN, it was on People Magazine, it was on the Golf Channel. My buddy calls me, goes, "You were just on the Golf Channel." Like they never talk about hockey on the Golf Channel. And I'm not bragging about that, but I'm just saying how big of a story that it became. It just kept building and building. So I fly home, and I get home, and Tisha, my wife, she's with her, Biz, she's 11 years younger than me. No big deal, she was 29. I was 40 when I was chasing her in St. Louis. So she's crying, she's upset. And then, so I'm talking to Chaser and obviously a bunch of the Blues alumni that morning. And so then 1:30 in the afternoon, Chaser calls me, goes, "I got some bad news to tell you." I said, "You got some fucking bad news to tell me?" I said, "Have you seen the day that I'm having?" He goes, "Bobby Plager just got killed in a car accident." I'm like, fuck. I'm like,
it was that day?
It was that day. So social media was going crazy in St. Louis. And then all of a sudden, Bobby passed away. And Chaser, later, I talked to him a couple hours later, and he goes, because Bobby was the best, he's just a tremendous guy, and he loved my kids. And Chaser goes, "Bobby loved you so much, he thought he'd take the heat off you today." So my kids come home from school, and I get down on one knee, and I'm talking to them because, they're 9 and 7, they're not big. And I go, "I've got something to tell you." I go, and I start crying, I go, your dad's not reffing in the NHL anymore. And still chokes me up, because that's honestly, like, to this day, that's the only thing that bothers me is Bronson and Brielle really wanted to see their dad work a final game. And I've seen some guys retire over the last few weeks, and the players are hugging them. And I've seen pictures of the kids in their dressing room. And for me not to get that, and I'm the one that did it, nobody else did it, I'm the one that did it. But for me not to be able to experience that and share that with them. So I start crying, and then I tell the kids that Bobby had passed away. So it was rough, but you know what? Joel Quenneville called me, Roenick called me, everyone was calling me, and they're like, "Peelsy, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine." One thing Joel did say, and Roenick said the exact same thing, that's why I brought them both up at the same time, is they go, "You know what's funny?" They go, "You were well known before, but like it or not, you're really well known now." and hopefully you can maybe monetize off of this come, in a while. So I'm driving just to finish it up, I'm driving my daughter out to horseback riding that afternoon after she gets finished school. And we're driving out. She's 7 at the time, my little peanut Brielle, and we're driving out, and she's in the back seat, and she goes, "Dad, can I ask a favor?" I said, "Yeah, baby girl. What do you need?" She goes, "Can you tell people that you weren't fired by the NHL?" And I'm like, fuck, like, take the fucking knife out of my heart, right? Like, I'm like, ugh. That's the only thing that bothers me. And like I said earlier, I was adopted. I grew up in a trailer park. Then my adopted mom died of cancer at age 50. Like, my whole life has been about resiliency and perseverance and getting kicked in the teeth and so on. And then, a couple of weeks after that, Tisha goes to me, she goes, you're doing really good. Like, you're not upset. And I go, "Babe," I go, "first of all, my history, my background." I go, "But I've got an example to set for Bronson and Brielle that are 7 and 9. I go, I go, you're going to get kicked in the nuts a lot in your life. And basically it's how you come out on the other side of it. And we had a house party. We had people over at our house a couple of weeks after my incident. And I could tell everybody was they didn't know what to say. So finally I said, hey, I'm fine. Everything's good. Don't worry about me. And this one guy, Andy Kaiser, and it always chokes me up when I tell this, but he looked at me and he said it in front of everybody. He goes, Peelsy, you're not our friend because you were an NHL ref. You could have been a fucking garbage man. You're our friend because of who you are as a person. And so at the end of the day, it's you know what? Nobody cares. It's done with, and it's about how I live the rest of my life. And I'm not going to let a 2-second audio clip define who I am or bring down my entire career.
I guess I got to follow up, Tim. Awesome. I feel like they, personally, they sort of made you a scapegoat because you can't be the first guy to utter those words on the ice, and they happen to get picked up on a mic that was left on. I mean, other guys must have said that. Did you feel like they were sort of making you a scapegoat for some shitty officiating? And okay, here's an excuse, and we can get rid of him. I mean, it just seems like you paid the price much higher than you would not deserve that you even should have gotten.
I think a lot of it was. Just prior to that, they had just brought on some gambling partners, Bally Sports, Fox Sports is now Bally Sports.
Yes.
I think I know a big part of it was, hey, to our gambling partners, our referees do not referee like this.
Because they,
and I think if it had to happen 10 years prior, I would have got a slap on the wrist, maybe suspended a couple of weeks, who knows? But I think it was the perfect storm. Peelsy's retiring in 4 weeks. We signed on the gambling partners. We're just going to we're going to set them aside and move on. So like I talked to Bill Daly 3 or 4 times on the phone since this has happened. And I'm not bullshitting when I say this. It's a complete truth. Everything I have is because of the National Hockey League. Gary and Bill were phenomenal to me during my career through my ups and downs and so on. And I said this the other day to some friends of mine. I go, it's weird. A lot of guys in our business leave the business bitter. And they're bitter they didn't get one more final. They're bitter they didn't work the playoffs the last couple of years. For whatever reason, they leave this game bitter.
Same as players.
Yeah, same as players.
A lot of players are like that.
And Whitter, I said, I will never, ever leave this game bitter. That sucks to live your life like that. And everything I have is they're not the ones that said the stupid comment. I'm the ones that said the stupid comment. It's not their fault that I said it. Do I wish it was handled differently? Yeah, of course I do. I would have loved to have finished and so on. But at the end of the day, we need more accountability in our life. Everyone wants to blame everybody else for everything. And no, I was the one that said it. I made a mistake, but you learn from it. So.